Quiet times are the hardest for Michelle Ortiz.
You know, I've had nightmares for years with this.
17 years of fighting for justice after shocking abuse and unthinkable wrongs has taken a toll. A physical, mental, and emotional roller coaster that would lead her all the way to the United States Supreme Court. But began at age 25 with simple dreams and wedding bells.
It was great for the first few years.
Soon the young couple had a home in Lorain County, good jobs at the Ford Motor Plant, and a growing family.
And then it turned abusive.
Medical records detail multiple injuries from various forms of domestic violence.
He broke my arm. He broke my ribs. He strangled me till I passed out.
We were afraid all the time.
Michelle's parents, Darlene and Bill DeMarchi, begged their daughter to leave the marriage.
Michelle, you weren't raised like that.
Police records show that Michelle's husband was arrested and convicted twice for domestic violence.
He told me if I ever left him, he'd kill me.
The volatile relationship exploded in a savage fight January 19, 1995. But Michelle says this time she fought back.
Every time he hit me after that, I stabbed him. So I ended up stabbing him 7 times.
Since she was a victim of domestic violence, Michelle was stunned that she was arrested, but she figured she'd do a couple days in the local lockup and then go home. But that's not what happened.
So he said he was charging me with premeditated attempted murder.
After all she's been through with him, I can't believe this.
Her defense claimed battered women syndrome, something medical experts supported. Still, September 1996, she was found guilty of aggravated assault and sentenced to a year at the Ohio Reformatory for Women in Marysville, Ohio.
And I'm in shock, and I'm sure that it's really not real, but it was really real. And I had to actually mentally prepare myself.
She assumed other inmates would be her biggest threat. But according to court documents, it was a guard named Douglas Schultz who targeted her.
And reached around and grabbed my breast. I told him to get away from me. He told me, I'll get you tomorrow. Don't worry about it.
Michelle reported the incident to Paula Jordan, the cottage manager, but no action was taken. The next night, as Michelle laid there in her cell, she says Douglas Schultz returned and sexually assaulted her.
Well, I hit him, and when I hit him, I cut his neck and had his skin under my fingernails. Well, he zipped up his pants, licked his fingers, zipped up his pants, and walked out of the room.
According to court records, Michelle was taken to prison investigator Rebecca Bright.
Instead of taking me for medical treatment, she pushed a button and 2 guards came in and she told them to take me to the hole.
The hole is generally a place for punishment, but Michelle, a victim, was locked up wearing only a gown and paper shoes without a mattress in early November with malfunctioning heat.
I was crying, my teeth were chattering, I was freezing.
Michelle says every day they took her from the hole and asked her if she was ready to recant her story. And each day when she said no, she was thrown back in.
I was so scared that I didn't know what to do.
But her parents did. Back home in Lorain County, Darlene and Bill were getting worried when their daughter, who normally called every night, hadn't picked up the phone all week.
I called down there. I said, I want to know what's wrong with my daughter.
She says the warden, Shirley Rogers, told her Michelle was fine. But a recording captured on their answering machine told a different story.
She thought she had hung up. And he heard her say, that little bitch isn't going anywhere.
The DeMarchis marched down to Marysville demanding answers.
They opened my door and the State Highway Patrol was standing there. My mom started crying because she said that she was sure that I had died.
Michelle was to be transferred to another institution, but first, she had something for investigators.
Did not wash my hand, had the skin under my fingernails.
DNA evidence she hoped would lead to criminal charges filed against Douglas Schultz.
Then I got out and I retained a lawyer.
October 1998, Michelle filed this civil lawsuit in federal court charging that Warden Shirley Rogers, investigator Rebecca Bright, manager Paula Jordan, and corrections officer Douglas Schultz violated her constitutional rights by rape and torture.
When I first filed against the state, they had offered to settle with me for $15,000. I told them it was not the money, it was the morality issue.
More than anything, Michelle wanted to face Douglas Schultz in court, but he could never be located by the court to serve him papers.
My whole thing was that the guard is still not found.
The warden was also dismissed from the case because she died by the time the jury trial got underway in Judge Algernon Marbley's Columbus courtroom. The jury returned a verdict in Michelle's favor against Brighton Jordan and awarded her a substantial six-figure sum.
They had ruled unanimous in my favor, and I had won.
But joy turned to anguish when in 2009, the United States Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals, in a split decision, overturned that verdict.
It's like they picked it up and blew off the dust and said that I lose. So I lost.
Down but not out, Michelle hired Cleveland appellate attorney David Mills.
My initial thought was, I'm going to have to find something bigger than this case for the Supreme Court to be interested.
The Supreme Court only takes about 80 cases out of the thousands petitioned each year. But incredibly, David found a way.
The basic idea behind it is that you can't really overturn a jury verdict based on arguments that were in place before the evidence came out at the trial.
In November 2010, Attorney Mills stood before the U.S. Supreme Court.
I've researched this, I believe in Michelle's case, and I believe I can explain it.
And so he did, winning a unanimous decision in Michelle's favor, reinstating her jury's verdict.
And he said, "You won."
She was speechless.
This May 2012, Michelle was finally compensated for all of her pain and suffering with that six-figure settlement, and finally obtained some justice. Or did she? According to the Ohio Department of Rehabilitation and Correction, none of the employees named in Michelle's lawsuit still works for the DRC, but none has been charged criminally either. No one would go on camera, but in a statement said the DRC has a zero-tolerance policy regarding rape or any form of violence against inmates. But that's little comfort to Michelle. So now she's filed a new report with the Ohio State Highway Patrol pursuing rape charges against CO Douglas Schultz.
My case will never be over until he's behind bars.
And maybe then, she and her family can finally find peace.
At one time, I thought he took away things from me, but he didn't, because I was strong enough. He didn't take anything away from me. Yeah, I would give everything I just won to see him go to prison.